you think you have a problem with willpower, but you really just have a problem with planning ahead. That's the issue. You put yourself into environments, or you are in environments that you maybe don't even have control of. So maybe you didn't put yourself there, but you're now in an environment where you perhaps did not plan ahead for. And that is quite common. You don't need any more willpower. This is something that I hear people say all the time in the diet world, fitness industry in general, is like, man, I can't seem to lose weight. We'll use that as an example. I can't lose weight because I just don't have the willpower. I start to eat healthier, start to eat on a nutrition plan. I start to even work out. I start to work out and exercise. And then I fall off because I just don't have the willpower. And to me, in my opinion, I think that's a complete lie. I do not think that actually exists, maybe with some people, but at least all the people that I've worked with so far that have told me that, I respectfully challenge them on this because I don't believe it actually exists. I think they do have the willpower. And what I'm not implying is that, no, you do have the willpower, you just need the discipline to exercise it, you know? You just need to try harder. I don't think that exists either. What I mean is actually, I'll give you some examples first. So when I say someone doesn't have any willpower, or when someone tells me they don't have any willpower, when I respectfully challenge them on that, I'll usually ask them a bit more about their life, because I guarantee you there's examples within their life where they actually do exercise very powerful willpower. Very powerful willpower. Good example would be like, do you go to work on time every day? Maybe some people don't, but you probably do. And that takes a level of willpower, because you could just not do it. Waking up before you want to. A lot of people do that, especially if they go to bed too late, which that is quite common. You wake up and you're like, I have to get up now at 6 a.m. or whatever it is to get to work on time. And I went to bed at midnight and this just isn't enough hours. I feel so tired. But my alarm's going off. I guess I'm getting up. That takes willpower. Brushing your teeth before bed. This is something a lot of people probably don't even think about now. And part of that is because it's so ingrained into your lifestyle. It's a habit, which is a big approach that I take with my clients, is building these habits so that it is something easy, something simple, something you don't have to think about. But brushing your teeth takes a level of willpower. And to be honest, it probably doesn't even take much willpower for a lot of people, assuming you're teenager or 20s or 30s or older, because you've been doing it so long that it actually doesn't require willpower anymore, because it is a habit that's just automatically ingrained into your life, which is my goal for all my clients that I work with, to get them to build these habits, these sustainable behaviors around food, around eating, so that it basically becomes a similar thing as it does with brushing their teeth, where they don't even have to think about it. They just do it. It takes no extra emotional bandwidth. But at the start, it will. Just like how, all of our parents had to basically force us to brush our teeth when we were kids, because it wasn't an automatic part of our daily life. Another example, being tired and exhausted, but still making your family dinner. And this would be true with a lot of the moms I work with that do cook for their family. Some of them don't. But some of them do. That is the role that they take within their family, where they will cook dinner for their kids and their spouse. And, probably most of the time they're tired and they're exhausted. Sometimes they're sick. And that's not the ideal environment or circumstance to be, thinking about what do I have to make? Oh no, and I don't have to make just food for me. I got to make food for my kids and my husband. And it's a lot, but they do it. They still do it. And that takes willpower. So I think there's a lot of examples. If you're someone like this, where you're like, oh yeah, I've always said I struggle with achieving my fitness goals and staying consistent with them because I don't have enough willpower. I would encourage you to do this same exercise with your own life and look at areas where you do show extensive willpower, because I guarantee you they're there. So it's not that you lack the willpower. In my opinion, when it comes to fitness, because certainly If I'm saying you don't lack the willpower, then like, what is the issue, right? That would be the next logical follow-up question. So I think, in my opinion, that if you say that you lack the willpower, your problem with uh how do I say this? You don't you think you have a problem with willpower, but you really just have a problem with planning ahead. That's the issue. You put yourself into environments, or you are in environments that you maybe don't even have control of. So maybe you didn't put yourself there, but you're now in an environment where you perhaps did not plan ahead for. And that is quite common. That's very common. That's most people. They just did not plan for that situation, that environment that they're now in, that scenario. And they are now relying heavily on willpower because they didn't plan ahead for it. So your problem with planning ahead is just disguised as a problem with willpower. That's all it is. It's not a problem with willpower. It's a problem with planning ahead. You're not good at planning ahead for these circumstances and environments that you find yourself in, which is normal. A good example is like I have a number of clients that I work with a lot of parents. So a lot of them they find themselves in the environment of sitting in a parking lot outside of an arena while their kids are at hockey practice. Now, that environment could be very detrimental to their fitness goals if they do not plan ahead, right? So if these arenas would serve hot dogs, french fries, poutine, burgers, Coca-Cola, whatever, candy, chips, not to say that these foods are necessarily off limits. We can make room for these foods. But in general, we don't want that to be dinner most of the time. And for a lot of people, I think it is dinner because they just don't plan ahead for it. And then it's like, well, I'm hungry. It's 6 p.m. My kid's at hockey practice. I got to eat something. I just finished work. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I guess I'm just going to go get, a bag of Lay's and a poutine. And there's my dinner. And really that's before I get there, a lot of people would look at that. And if that's them, they'd be like, man, I just don't have the willpower. I just should have not eaten that. But really, that's not an issue of willpower. That's an issue of not adequately or appropriately planning ahead for that scenario that you knew was going to happen. So that's something that I help coach my clients through, make that a lot simpler. And if we can learn to plan ahead in a way that barely takes any extra time, very little effort, but some effort, then it actually becomes this situation where now you find yourself in the situation that you knew you were going to be in, sitting in a parking lot outside of the arena while your kid's at hockey practice. And instead of relying on willpower to get you through this situation in a healthy way or to make a good, healthy decision, if you plan ahead, you just bring your meal with you and already have it prepped, which I can think of 2 clients in particular that I know that sent me a photo of them doing that exact thing where they're sitting outside of their kids' sports practice and they're just waiting for the practice to be done, but it's dinner time, it's after work, and they'd already planned their dinner. So they had it in their Tupperware. It's a well-balanced, delicious meal of food that they enjoy, but it keeps them on track. It's what we have planned for them to eat based on the goal that they have. And then they didn't have to rely on willpower. The food is right there. The decision is already made for them because they planned ahead, because they prepared ahead. And if you can fix this problem of planning ahead, then the problem of willpower completely disappears. And you realize that I don't actually have low willpower. I'm actually quite strong. I am good at making hard decisions. Maybe not in every area of your life, but in some areas of your life, you actually probably do exercise strong willpower and you're good at making hard decisions. Just in this area, you're not yet because you haven't fixed the underlying problem, which is inadequately planning ahead. This kind of overlaps as well with discipline, because a lot of people kind of use these words interchangeably where it's like, oh, I just lack discipline. I don't have any discipline. And I would respectfully challenge anyone that says that as well, because you may not have discipline in this area of fitness and health and nutrition yet, but it's not like the root problem is not a discipline problem. The root problem is still setting up your life in a way that plans ahead and prepares you for these scenarios that you're going to find yourself in inevitably, and what those situations are for the most part. Life is unpredictable. It's chaotic. Things happen, whatever. Some things you can't plan for and prepare for. And you do have to rely on, you know, decision making in the moment, right? And that's also something that I help my clients with to make that a lot easier for themselves. But in many situations, you don't have to rely on willpower. Some you may have to, but in a lot of situations, you don't have to rely on willpower, and you don't have to rely on your discipline. It makes it a lot easier if you're aware of these various scenarios that happen throughout your life. Where another good example isn't just waiting outside, waiting for your kid's sports practice to be done. Another one that a lot of people have because they have a decent commute to and from work, where it's like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. if you work later, 8 p.m., and you're in your car on the way home and you're like, dude, I haven't eaten since noon. It's been 6, 7, 8 hours. I am starving and I got to go home. I'm not even going to have a meal ready when I get there. So I'm going to have to cook food or whatever. Excuse me. Whatever the scenario is. And you're like, you know what? I'm just going to go through the drive-through at McDonald's and I'm just going to get a burger, fries, and a drink. And then you go through that cycle again of like, man, my willpower sucks. And then you feel discouraged or you feel guilty or whatever. And you get all these negative emotions attached to that. And that can be different for everybody. But really, the problem is not that you just need to try harder. It's not that you need better willpower. It's not that you need more discipline. You need better systems. You need better systems. You need better support. That can happen through hiring a coach. You need a better plan. You need better habits. You need a very simple way for you to plan ahead that is easily integratable within your day-to-day life so that you do not find yourself in these scenarios over and over and over again every day throughout the week being like, man, I just like don't have any willpower. And then that makes you feel, honestly, it makes you feel pretty horrible. And it can, it ends up in this like cycle of discouragement where it's like, I guess I'll just never make the changes I want because I'm just not strong enough. And that really beats up your self-confidence, which again, just creates this cycle of like, you know, poor self-confidence. And then you make decisions based off that don't support your goals, which then make you feel low confidence. And it just keeps going over and over and over and over again. When really this root problem is like you just do not have the systems, the support, the habits, and the ability to actually diagnose like what is the underlying problem here and how can we actually provide a solution to it that fixes this instead of just going through this same conversation over and over again of like, I am weak. I am not strong enough. I do not have discipline. I do not have willpower. I just need to try harder. And this seems impossible. And of course it seems impossible because you're not actually assessing the underlying problem. You know, this is something I see I see it from a distance with other people and just like conversations that I have just in life with people, but also professionally speaking when I'm having conversations with clients or when I have conversations with new clients that are just starting. This is a lot of false beliefs that a lot of people hold. And there's a number of those beliefs that a lot of people hold when they do start working with me. And part of my coaching is respectfully challenging those so that we can dismantle those slowly over time, assuming someone is open-minded to doing that. And when you do that, you get these light bulb moments that are awesome. And they feel really good when they happen to you, because then you realize how freeing that is. And when you realize you're wrong, and if you're okay with being wrong, you will feel so much better about this because you realize how much more you are in control of, and you realize that the solution to these problems that you have are actually way simpler and a lot more achievable and actually doable. You can totally do them as opposed to just being like, well, Stacy, you're just not trying hard enough. And if that's all it is, it's like, man, you are going to be spinning your wheels for a long time and also just in a mental state that does not enjoy life or feel good about yourself physically, but also just not about yourself. You won't feel good about yourself mentally, which is arguably worse in my opinion. I think another aspect of this to kind of touch on is this conversation around priorities. A lot of people will make this argument where if you're struggling with this, then you just don't prioritize it enough. It's not high enough of a priority. So if you find yourself on the way home from work or whatever, and you're tired and you're hungry and you're like, man, I haven't eaten in 7 hours and I need to eat something, or I want to eat something, or whatever story you tell yourself. Regardless, you decide to go through the drive-thru, you eat something that you're like, I know this doesn't support my fitness goals, but I just want to feel good. A lot of people would look at that and be like, you just don't prioritize your fitness enough. And I think there's probably some truth there, right? There's some truth to that statement for sure. But I don't think that is necessarily helpful advice. It's not necessarily helpful diagnosis of like what's going on or what the problem even is, because assessing your priorities are like way easier said than done. I know a lot of people say they want to achieve things. I've done this. I'm trying to be, a personal thing that I'm trying to do is actually acknowledge and identify when I'm saying things that I want to do that I actually have no intention of doing, but I'm just saying it. And that's easy habit to kind of get stuck in, where you just say, I want to do this, I want to do that. But how bad do you actually want to do this? Because if you're not actually going to put efforts toward this, then, you can wish in one hand and you can want in another. Or I guess I guess that's not the saying, right? You could wish in one hand and you could piss in the other and see which one fills up faster. That's the actual analogy, because it's like, what is actually effective? We actually have to take action on this. We can't just wish it. We can't just want it. So to take action on it, we actually have to assess our priorities. So while that's true, where it's like, if you're struggling with this and then just thinking like, I'm just being told I don't prioritize this enough. Well, the follow-up logical question would be like, well, how do I prioritize this in a way that is meaningful to me, that actually triggers and motivates action, And my suggestion for that is think about what you actually care about in life. What do you actually care about? And what do you actually value? Because if you can think about those things, which I think a lot of people haven't thought about that deeply, and you may have, you may haven't, but you may haven't. you may have thought about this to an extent that maybe doesn't even go deep enough, and maybe you have. But I would still encourage you to do this. I'm still going through this myself and regularly reassessing this, because humans change. We change. All of us change over time, and we should change. So I think having this conversation with ourselves about like, what does matter to me in this existence of life? I was born, I'm going to die. In this time, what matters to me? What do I value the absolute most? Because we can't value everything. If we value everything, we value nothing. And it's the same thing with priorities. If we prioritize everything, then we prioritize nothing. So what I like to do, and I would encourage you to do, is going through that conversation with yourself about like, what actually matters to me, and then attach your priorities to those things that matter to you, those values that matter to you. So for me, I value feeling good. I value feeling vitality. I value feeling healthy. I value feeling energy. I value sleeping well. I value looking good in clothes. I value looking good in my body and being proud of a thing that I've built that took a lot of hard work and energy. And because of that, it's easier, in a sense, if that's the right word, to attach my priorities to that. So good example is like, if I'm not feeling good at all, struggling with sleep, and I'm going through a phase where maybe my mental health isn't great, or struggling with sleep, or there's just more life stress going on, or whatever, or maybe I have a physical injury of some kind that I'm working through, and working out is just not fun for me, I never skip my sessions. I always go. And it's easy. I don't know if the right word is easy, but I always go to these sessions, and there's not the voice in my head. I know a lot of people have this voice, but I do not have that voice in my head anymore that tells me like, oh, you should just skip the gym or whatever. I still go and I do something. And I go because I've already made that decision in my head previously of what actually matters to me. And I've attached the gym, the behavior of going to the gym and doing some workout, some sort of physical movement, and I've attached that to my value system and what actually matters to me. I've attached it to those things. Like, I care about this, 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 and this, and therefore this behavior is, will get me those things, and it's attached to those things, So I think that looks different for everybody. And it has to look different for everybody because we're all different, and that's good and that's fine. But I think because it is different for everybody, you have to go through this exercise on your own, especially if you're someone who struggles with consistency and you struggle with falling off and derailing when it comes to making, fitness and nutrition and eating well and wellness in general just a part of your life. If you're like, man, all these fitness people, it just seems easy for them. No, it's not. That's a lie you tell yourself as well. That's a false narrative because it's not. Now, it is easier for some people. It's harder for some people, just like everything in life. Some things just come easier to others. That's fine. But everyone has their own journey. What you need to do is still go through this thought process and assess what actually matters to you and then connect those things together. Because then what you can do is you can build systems and you can build support and you can build strategies and guardrails and habits that happen over time that then make this so much easier the more you do it. And then this problem of consistency slowly starts to evaporate, much like brushing your teeth would for most people. Some people probably struggle to brush their teeth regularly. So I haven't even got to that point where it's become automatic. But if we can make fitness, if we can make the gym, or working out, just whether it's at the gym or at home or whatever, but if we can make exercise and working out, if we can make nutrition and eating healthy, if we can make making healthy decisions for your body and for your mind just an automatic part of your life to the point that it's on par with what brushing your teeth is in your life, then you won't rely on discipline nearly as much. You won't rely on willpower nearly as much. You won't rely on just like white knuckling it constantly. And you won't rely on trying harder. All of these things you'll realize you don't need to try that hard, and in certain times of life you will, but you won't need to rely on so much willpower and you won't need to rely on so much discipline. It just becomes a lot simpler. And truthfully, again, I don't like to use this word, but it does become easier over time to the point where it's on par with brushing your teeth. But you have to go through this thought process and this thought exercise of like, what do I actually want out of life? What actually matters to me in this journey of life? And then I know it's kind of a deeper philosophical thing, but like, I think it has to be. For something to stick, it has to be deeper than just like, I want to be leaner and skinny. I want to be smaller. I want to fit into smaller pants. I want to have better energy. I want to sleep better. Those are all great goals. But you have to think, why do you want to do those things? And then just keep going deeper. Why? Keep asking why. And then you'll start to uncover some of these deeper values that you maybe subconsciously even hold that you haven't even thought of. And then you can bring it to the conscious, and then you can attach it to the behaviors that actually will get you to the goal that you want and to the outcome that you want. And then that's when, again, this problem of planning ahead that was disguised as a problem with willpower completely evaporates. And then it's not a problem. And that's where I'm at. And I think everyone can get here. This hasn't always been easy for me, but it's a lot easier now. And it gets easier the longer I do it because time is on my side. The more I practice this, the easier it gets. The more sustainable it is. The more consistent I am, the easier it is. The longer I do it, the simpler it is, And I rely on willpower far less than I ever used to. I rely on discipline far less than I ever used to. I don't have to try nearly as hard on average, most days. Life gets hard and sometimes I do. But it gets easier and it gets better and it gets more fun. It gets more enjoyable the longer I do it. I hope this made sense. I hope this helped you. I hope you got some value from this. If this resonated with you, let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube. And if it didn't resonate with you, I still want to hear from you as well. So put your comments in below about how much you hated this episode. And if you have any questions on this, you can always DM me on Instagram at I am Tim Walcott or at Stay Peaked. And I'd love to chat with you and just give you advice. No strings attached. Won't pitch you on my coaching. Literally just give you insight, give you advice on this if you have specific questions around this, because this is a common but deeper, more convoluted, challenging thing to navigate for people. Let me know. I'm happy to help you out through this. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay for next week. We'll see you in a few days.